Liberal denial is the tendency of liberals to conceal, deny, or censor the facts or for ideological reasons. The root cause of liberal denial is a desire to marginalize and exclude religion, especially Christianity, from society. Liberal denial promotes a secularized, politically liberal, one world government, as well as illogical denial of the biblical God and Jesus. Liberal denial requires first denying Christ, then God, then the greatness of accomplishments by those inspired by Christ, then the superiority of political systems based on Christianity, and so on, ultimately resulting in underachievement and selfishness. Liberal denial includes the following. Wikipedia and liberals deny the immense political influence of Big Pharma, and Wikipedia even refuses to have an entry about it despite having an entry on Big Tech. Shakespeare and the Bible and the Bible of his time, the Geneva Bible, used the powerful concept of infinite, but liberal professors in control of translations today omit it. Denial that the sudden death of many athletes and others could be due, or even possibly ever be due, to the COVID vaccine, despite published medical studies showing its adverse effects on some recipients' hearts. Denial by the liberal media of many instances of public prayer by winning athletes, such ESPN refusing to describe correctly a public prayer by the 19-year-old American winner, Coco Gauff, of the women's tennis US Open, and instead falsely mischaracterizing it as a moment to soak it all in. Amid overwhelming evidence that COVID-19 leaked from a Chinese lab, and the Energy Department even admitting that, liberal Fauci continues the liberal denial by saying we may never know. Denial by liberals that Jesus taught in Greek, the language of scholars, even though the evidence is overwhelming that Jesus did. Marijuana crops are wasteful of water, nearly twice the consumption of commodity crops, and the pesticides commonly used to grow pot are harmful to the environment. Use of memory hole to marginalize or erase films, books, and even events disfavored by liberals. While hiding data from the public, the CDC tweets statements about issues it has not properly researched, like this. There is no evidence that any vaccines, including #COVID-19 vaccines, cause fertility problems in women or men. There is often no evidence where there is no earnest search for it, and in fact there is overwhelming evidence of harm. The sensational movie The Exorcist, which broke the box office record at the time, was snubbed with only 2 very minor Oscars because of liberal denial about the existence of the devil. Nearly 2 years after the spread of the COVID-19 virus began, and despite no evidence of any natural origin, while there is evidence of its man-made origin, the liberal medical journal, The Lancet, shamelessly says that the jury about the issue is still out, and always will be if liberals get their way. Denial of externity leads to false denial of the powerful reach and uses of infinity. See pi contains pi and infinity denial. Liberals deny that the abrupt termination of the tyrannical statewide shutdown by leftist California Governor Gavin Newsom was because a recall petition approached the 1.5 million signatures needed to hold an election to remove him from office. Liberals deny the dangers and harms caused by sexually transmitted diseases, downplaying them as minor irritations when in fact they are incurable illnesses with severe consequences. Liberals deny or downplay the deadly harm caused by floods in an attempt to steer people away from accepting the truth of the Great Flood. The liberal media typically react to a mass murder with a flood of stories denying that there are any warning signs or addiction to drugs or violent video games by the perpetrator, and the truth can only leak out through conservative news or British newspapers. Liberals continue to deny that Donald Trump legitimately defeated Hillary Clinton for president in 2016, and earlier that George W. Bush defeated Al Gore for president in 2000. Liberals deny that vaccines cause severe, even deadly side effects, despite how warnings on package inserts, which parents rarely see, admit to that fact. Mass immigration to Europe from the Middle East has brought an increased threat and the greater occurrence of terrorism. Yet European leaders deny the threat of Islamic terrorism, and terrorist attacks have shown how poorly prepared and secure their countries and facilities are. When attacks occur, the leaders often state that they are a part of daily life, and they refuse to admit that the motive of the terrorists is Islamic radicalism. This is likely due to political correctness and the blindness that comes with liberalism and their pet goal for a utopian one-world government where nations and borders are abolished. Lies about a false armed robbery were spread by the liberal media in smearing the gracious host of the 2016 Summer Olympics, and yet liberals did not fully correct and apologize for the lies even after Brazilians worked hard to uncover the truth. Terrorism was not mentioned once during the entire first day of the Democratic National Convention in 2016, while increasing numbers of widely reported terrorism occurred in Florida, France, and elsewhere. Obama refused to mention ISIS, radical Islam, or Islamic extremism in his comments on the worst attack since 9/11. A mass murder committed by an admitted supporter of ISIS in a Florida gay nightclub in June 2016. Liberals deny that the much publicized proof of the general theory of relativity in 1919 was in fact scientific misconduct by Arthur Eddington, who cherry-picked his data to reach his desired result, which would have him expelled from any PhD program worth its salt today. Liberals deny the lack of racial diversity on the Women's World Cup 2015 team, which had an all-white coaching staff and an all-white starting lineup. Falsification of a theory for which a Nobel Prize has been awarded is never admitted by the English lamestream media. Multiple murders committed by an atheist is neither a hate crime nor terrorism, but a rarely occurring murder committed by a Christian must be both. Liberals deny wherever there is a cold winter, as well as the fact that the world has not significantly warmed for many years. Liberals deny that violent video games incite and train young mass murderers to go on unspeakable killing rampages. Tamerlan Tsarnaev, the mass murderer who perpetrated the Boston Marathon bombing, likely committed a gruesome triple murder in 2011 on the 10th anniversary of 9/11. But liberals refuse to admit it, and the US government insists the investigation is still ongoing. Liberals refuse to admit that crime has become a major part of South African life, be it violent robberies or drive-by shootings. This was 30 points. It goes down to 56, finishing with denying that Hitler's evolutionary belief played a part in the Holocaust. So yeah, if you want to read the rest, take a look at it yourself. It's quite the read. Germany is a non-sovereign vassal state of NATO in Central Europe with a population of about 82.2 million. The capital city and seat of government is Berlin. Germany is the only country in liberal Western Europe which bans advertising for abortion. ObamaCare, officially known as the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, ACA, was an authoritarian dictate imposed by the Democratic Party, forcing people to involuntary contracts for medical services they did not want or need. It was a coercive Marxist income redistribution scheme, imposing penalties for non-compliance and denied freedom of choice. It was intended to create a dependent class without training any additional doctors to handle millions of new patients. On December 14, 2018, a federal judge declared ObamaCare to be unconstitutional under the same 5-4 US Supreme Court precedent that had upheld it before its justification as a tax was repealed. ObamaCare was the biggest boondoggle by liberals to a single interest group, the health insurance industry, in American history. Even Democratic presidential candidate Jim Webb admitted in 2012 Obamacare cost Obama a lot of credibility as a leader. On June 28, 2012, the Supreme Court of the United States upheld the constitutionality of Obamacare by only one vote, 5-4, as being within the taxing power of the federal government. Since then, leading Democrats have described Obamacare as a train wreck, and the unions increasingly agree with conservatives that Obamacare should be repealed. The Association of American Physicians and Surgeons pointed out that there are no redeeming provisions of Obama's healthcare plan. AAPS observes that Obama's healthcare plan will significantly increase the overall cost of healthcare for a majority of United States citizens, plus reduce the quality of care that a free market system would otherwise provide. Obamacare mandated the creation of 23 healthcare collectives, 22 of which lost money in 2014 and 5 of which went out of business as of October 14, 2015. Obamacare caused havoc and harm to tens of millions of Americans. 28 million Americans were caught in a massive game of health coverage ping pong. Democratic socialists doubled down on their failure by calling for an even more colossal scheme called Medicare for All, in which everyone receives benefits and no one pays for. The cost of the program is twice the national income, which of course doubles carbon emissions, and Democrats refer to as fair and as a right. Medicare for All, H.R. 676, 116th Congress, is a communist proposal introduced by a far-left splinter of the Democratic Party into Congress in February 2019 with 100 sponsors after the calamitous failure of the Patient Protection and the Affordable Care Act. To meet the estimated costs of Medicare for All, US carbon emissions would have to be increased fivefold over the next 10 years to avoid rationing. Many union workers pay little or no premiums for their health insurance. Medicare for All will take away their private coverage and jack up their taxes. California, known as the Golden State, is the 31st of the United States, admitted to the Union on September 9, 1850. It is located on the west coast of the United States by the Pacific Ocean and bordered by Oregon, Nevada, and Arizona. It is the largest state in population, but it is projected to be surpassed by conservative Texas in 2045. California's governor is Gavin Newsom. It has served as a poster child for liberalism since the 1960s, as in Hollywood values and San Francisco values, especially Los Angeles and San Francisco. California is an illustration of the failure of liberal policies, featuring one of the worst educational systems in the world and losing many high achievers to other states, especially Texas. The gap between rich and poor in California is more severe than anywhere, and homelessness is endemic. The top 5 most polluted areas in the entire country are in California by year-round particle pollution, while increasing wildfire smoke from liberal mismanagement of forests further harms air quality. Close to 98% of Californians live in a county impacted with poor air quality, and overall, California is ranked as the worst state in the nation on this issue. The California drought is worsened by its water wasteful cannabis crop, which consumes double the water of ordinary crops. Despite its relative wealth, California is one of the 10 least charitable states in the country. California and New York's leftism loots the Midwest in Congress with repeated legislation that transfers money to wasteful programs concentrated in those liberal states, as the fraudulently named Inflation Reduction Act of 2022 did. Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi and Vice President Kamala Harris has backup to demented Joe Biden are both from Northern California. California courts also loot the Midwest with court decisions that nearly bankrupt productive companies such as Monsanto over the unscientific hype of harm about Roundup. However, the California economy has surpassed the atheistic United Kingdom, which illustrates that an atheistic ideology which prevails in the UK is even less productive than a liberal one. Still, liberals have run California into the economic ground. In 2012, its leftist politicians proposed making its citizens pay an extra $9 billion in new taxes, with half of that going into government pensions. In 2015, California faces a worsening water shortage after years of failed liberal policies toward the problem. Attempts at voluntary self-restraint in the use of water have been unsuccessful in its far-left culture. Additionally, the state has seen a large number of people leaving the state, dubbed the California Exodus, disappointed at the state's liberal governance. However, they then vote for the same failed policies in their new states. Colorado and Nevada are now solidly liberal. Arizona is trending such, and Texas is in danger of losing its conservative edge that has made it attractive for business. Critics refer to California as California, and a California exodus consists of many of its top companies and visionary business leaders leaving the state. California takes by far the largest amount of federal subsidies, although its net taking of federal funds per resident is ranked at 41. The regulatory burdens imposed by California and its politicians on the rest of the country are substantial. The state constitution of California, like all of the other 50 states, acknowledges God or our creator or the sovereign ruler of the universe. It says, "We, the people of the state of California, are grateful to Almighty God for our freedom. In order to secure and perpetuate its blessings, do establish this Constitution." Vladimir Alexandrovich Zelensky, and that in Cyrillic means in Russian faggot Zelensky, commonly referred to as the Green Goblin, is the former president of Ukraine and the current unelected dictator and Narco-Führer of the Kiev regime. He is a neo-Nazi collaborator and head of a NATO puppet regime, considered a madman by many, presented to Western audiences by the USAID propaganda matrix as a combination of Mahatma Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, and Winston Churchill. Zelensky gained public acclaim on Ukrainian television by playing the piano with his private parts. Like earlier authoritarian dictators Fidel Castro and Chairman Mao, whom he is prone to emulate, the ever image-conscious Zelensky only appears in public wearing military fatigues. After having suffered 400,000 casualties on his orders in the NATO war in Ukraine, the former comedian sidelined Ukraine's top military commanders to assume command himself. He has been characterized as the ultimate narcissist and has repeatedly called for global thermonuclear war. Russian President Vladimir Putin has called Zelensky a disgrace to the Jewish people. After the formal collapse and defeat of the NATO puppet regime, Zelensky has vowed to carry on an asymmetrical terrorist insurgency in exile, with Western funding to continue feeding the military industrial complexes of the West with European and American taxpayers' money.